But let's go ahead and delve into, first of all, creating a Linux server when it comes to using VMware. The reason I'm going to be using VMware Fusion is because macOS is also covered, so I wanted to make sure to touch base a little bit more on that. All that being said, let's get started. So I actually already built a virtual machine for going through this. I'm going to call it a lab. Then I realized that some of you may not have had the experience of being able to see a virtual machine being built, because I know that there are some resource issues that some of you ran into. So I'm going to start off with going here, clicking new, and I'm going to be installing from disk or image. This basically means that I don't have a pre-built virtual machine that I'm going to import in. Now, you may get this experience when you take another class and the teacher builds out a Linux server or Linux virtual machine with all of the tools that you're going to need. But we're starting off small here. Now, you're going to see that I actually have quite a few Linux ISOs. This is the packages that are needed in order for me to start my virtual machine or to build my virtual machine. I do want to point out that Ubuntu does have a live server ISO. If you are in the position where perhaps you're using a laptop that doesn't have many resources like RAM, then this is a great choice for you because it isn't bogged down with an entire GUI, a graphical user interface. So for now though, because I want to show you how easy Linux really is I'm going to choose the Ubuntu desktop image. The reason I'm not using Fedora is when you take your Linux class, you're going to be exposed to Red Hat, and Fedora is very similar to Red Hat, but I won't go off into that tangent. Now, if you haven't used these images before, they won't be listed here, but you can just go ahead and click use another disk or disk image. It will bring you up, and now you can see what all I have on my laptop. It'll bring up the folders that you have on your system and let you get the ISO from there. If you've just downloaded it from the Linux site, then it more than likely will be in your downloads. Right, I already have mine, so I'm going to go to my desktop image, go ahead and click this. Now, one thing that I've actually discovered is there seems to be an issue when using easy install for that Ubuntu desktop. Plus, you know what? I'm showing you the entire process, so let's skip easy install. We'll click continue. For now, I'm going to go into using the legacy BIOS, but you may be asking yourself, well, what's the difference? Well, put very simply, legacy BIOS is legacy because it helps work with older systems. Basically, it helps your computer start up. It works with older hardware that can only use hard drives up to 2.2 terabytes. It's slower and really not as secure. Now, you may be thinking, wait, 2.2 terabytes, that's a lot of space. Why would I need to use that much? You would be surprised how quickly you can use space, especially if you are in a production environment. Now, UEFI is a newer version of the BIOS. It works faster, it can handle much larger hard drives, it has better security features, and it's also easier to use. So why not switch over to UEFI? Just go ahead and learn best practices. Now I'm going to go ahead and click continue. This is going to give me a summary of the basics that it believes I need to be able to use in order to spin up this virtual machine. Now on this screen, you see exactly what it says. You have a virtual machine summary, tells you the guest operating system, Ubuntu 23.04, perfect. One thing I want you to make sure that you look at is this new hard drive disk. Now, the capacity right now is set to 20 gigabytes, and this is the minimum that I would ever recommend if you're going to be using a GUI-based system, a system with a desktop. I've seen too many versions fail, or too many virtual machines fail to be built because not enough resources have been allocated to it. Now, when it comes to memory, I'm doing the 4 gigabytes just because I do have a lot of resources available on the Mac that I am using. However, go ahead and play around with this based on the resources that you have. Now, when it comes to networking, I want to go ahead and share it with my Mac. And the reason being, now I'm going to go ahead and share it with my Mac because I don't need it to have its own IP address. And I'm actually going to show you in a bit how to SSH into your virtual machine so that when you're using the command line, you kind of get that flexibility that you have in a actual terminal a little bit more. Now, I'll show you exactly what I mean in just a bit. Now, normally I would click finish, but I already have the box done. So if you're following along, go ahead and click finish, and you can pause this video till you get to this point. What I'm gonna do is click next because I do want my build to happen in English. Now, I don't wanna just try it, I actually wanna install it. But one of the cool things about these images is you could just try it, do whatever you want, especially if it's not a box that you want persistence in or a virtual machine. Apologies, I get just stuck in saying box from my Linux admin days. But I'm gonna go through the install process with you, so I'll choose that. Now, unless you don't want your virtual machine to have access to the outside world, really wired or Wi-Fi doesn't matter because once again, these are virtual resources. Going to do a normal install. Now you do have other options to install other software. This is just a virtual machine. I'm not going to be doing any gaming or anything fancy or providing any fancy hardware to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a normal install. This is kind of scary because it says, wait a minute, I'm going to erase everything. If you are doing this on an actual computer, not a virtual machine, you do run the risk, or I'm just going to say, it will erase everything that is on your system. Now here, I don't really care because the hard drive is a virtual one. I don't have anything on it. It's that 20 gigabyte hard drive I told the virtual machine I was going to have. So I'm going to click install, install. I absolutely hate when it does these host names, so I'm just going to name it my test box. Now I have to choose a super secret password. I have seen some people actually not require a password to log in. I can kind of see this if you're not doing anything that important in the virtual machine, because if they're getting to their virtual machine, they've actually already compromised your physical box or your physical machine, which means that you have other problems to begin with. But best practices, I'm going to require that password. You can use Active Directory, and if at this point you don't know what Active Directory is, make sure that you go back in your textbook and read over those chapters. In this room that I'm in, light version is going to work a lot better, and this is the part where I'm going to pause the video so you don't have to watch this work. Wow, that took way longer than I remember. I've been so used to working on Ubuntu server. So if you're following along, maybe I should have told you can go and do a load of laundry. But we're there, we're ready to get started. So go ahead and click restart now. And this video is long enough. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop this video here and we'll jump into the next video starting at where our box restarted.